Hello. So this is the final Sunday gimmick table, and I've got a bit of bad news for you. Somewhat bad news, I guess, I suppose. Today was intended to be another video. It was supposed to be the multi-hour Pixel Player thing. Pixel Player overview of a Pixel Player portable player that I bought a few months back. But it's not done yet, because I hadn't had the time to do the necessary dubbing. It's half dubbed, and I'm debating whether I'm going to do it as a single video or just release multiple parts first and then do the assembled thing later on, like I've done with past plug and play things like ages ago. But right now it's not done. It'll probably be another month or so before it's ready to go. So the three people looking forward to that, sorry to disappoint, but don't worry, it'll come out. It'll just come out next year. In any event, we got something vaguely more interesting. Because people thought the world was rid of ATGames when Sega announced the Mega Drive Mini was going to be developed by other people. But ATGames, they found they found new classics to rape, allegedly. And they released a Legends flashback console, which I wanted to get actually, just for the curiosity factor, but I couldn't find one in stores. But I did find this. The Bandai Namco flashback Flash Blast thing, which is an HDMI dongle that you plug into your thing, HDMI thing, and you play games on it. Or something. I don't know. I don't know how this HDMI stuff works. I've never actually had an HDMI dongle thing. Comes with 8 built-in games. One of them being Pac-Man. Anyways, some rubbish on the side. No wires. It includes 2.4 gigahertz wireless controller, which is always fun. HD performance. Save, load games on the fly, pick up right where you left off, implying some save state functionality. Have a blast with your favorite classics. Dig Dug, Galaga, Galaxian, Mappy, Pac-Man, Sky Kid, The Tower of Duraga, and Xevious. No Miss Pac-Man, I am sad. No Pac-Mania, I am also sad. Well. This is no special edition, so I don't know. Apparently there's a special edition which had Pac-Mania or something, but anyways, for those of you who frequent the YouTubes, you may recall that this thing was a subject of a bit of a controversy, if you will. You see, there was a YouTube personality by the name of who goes by the immortal John Hancock, a lovely fellow who has a nice voice, and who I first heard of through his video of the retro Sigma engine thing, whatever, it was an emulation box called a retro Sigma something, I don't remember. It was a rip-off crowdfunded thing, I don't know. And that's how, anyways, he had one of these things, and they came with, 8 Namco games running arcade ROMs. Everybody figured that's what we're getting. You would figure that because that's what you have on the back of the box here. They're all the arcade screenshots. However, another fellow on YouTube, whose name I forget, I do apologize, also got this review. Also, I guess he bought his from a store, I guess, I suppose, and they turned out to be NES ROMs. So it was a bit of a controversy. ATGames would later come out and say that, well, the early copies have NES ROMs, but later on we'll have the arcade ROMs or something. I don't know. Anyways, there was a huge shitstorm, and then ATGames started blocking people because ATGames, I don't know. So I ended up picking up one of these. There was a flashback unit for Atari games, but I have enough things with Atari games on it. I don't need another one. So I went with this instead because if it's NES ROMs, I'm curious to see how ATGames emulates NES ROMs. I'd imagine about as well as they emulate their Sega Genesis and Atari stuff, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because why do I bother? Okay, so we're going to open this thing up. Probably make use of the box. I almost got a paper cut. So we got a piece of paper here. We got stickers. Excellent. What I always wanted was stickers. Stickers that are already starting to peel, even though I haven't opened the box yet. God damn. Guys, just gonna pull this thing off. You have the instruction manual. The dongle just fell off. That's brilliant. And the wireless key. Got a rewind feature. That's brilliant. Menu, start, directional power indicator, something. Using controllers. How do I start playing? And oh, hold on. Okay, wait. I should probably read the box a little more, right? So, power the dongle with the included, okay, micro USB cable to a USB port or USB, okay. Alright, so this thing does not come with an AC adapter, which is the hot new thing these days. You buy a plug-and-play system, it doesn't come with batteries, doesn't come with a power adapter. Good job, folks. That's what, whatever, fine. Anyways, here's your instruction manual. Tells you how to set up the system, doesn't tell you how to play the games. That's brilliant, but then again, it's old games. You have this flimsy little micro USB plug that you plug to a thing or a it's a micro USB cable. You could get these anywhere and everywhere. But let's assume for a moment you can't, and not everybody buys cables up the ass like most people would. Just look at this thing. The NES controllers that comes with the NES Classic Edition have longer cords than this. That may be a stretch. Anyways, there's the controller. Feels like a Sega Genesis controller. Gee, I wonder why. And on the plus side, has this nice little cable slot. 2 AAA batteries. Once again, not included, because nothing's included. And do the words light, cheap, and plastic? Yes, do the words light, cheap, and plasticky mean anything to you? It sure does to me. This thing is like, it feels like a bigger version of those Sega Genesis flashback wireless controllers, which I've never fucking used because those things suck. I don't know. I am weary of wireless controllers to begin with, unless they're from like the major, console manufacturers, your Nintendos, your Sonys, your Microsofts, and whatever. This. And the weird thing is you look at the shape. These bumps, these does not feel good in the hands. Not very satisfying. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of an old NES clone system that I bought once upon a time called the Factor 5, and it had these weird aftermarket NES controllers, and it had a D-pad like this, a circular D-pad like this, which is like sticking. You see it's just sort of sticking out. you know, it's just sort of floating, and it's just, well, thank God I just picked something basic like Pac-Man games and not, anyway, so that's the dongle that has the games. You pull the cap off. So attempt to pull the cap off, yeah. You plug that to your HDMI output, and you know, the cable goes in here. You plug it to a power source, and you play games. So I guess that's what we'll do. You got a little ATGames logo on here just to remind you of the pain and the misery and stuff like that. This is a fun experience for me, regardless, because I've never used an HDMI powered plug and play system. So I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna set this up on my my capture station, my desk, because I got an open HDMI slot there. I already got a micro USB thing that I could plug this to. And we'll capture some footage and we'll see how this plays. Oh, I need to find batteries for this thing too, which ER. Okay, so anyways, be back in a sec. So I'm going to preface this whole segment with a story of how much of a pain in the ass it was to get this thing to work. When I tried plugging in the blast dongle thing into my capture setup, it gave me picture but did not give me sound. So I've tried playing around with wires and things of that nature to get this thing to work properly. I even plugged this thing into my phone charger with a proper long USB cable to give this gimmick a proper power source, and, well, no dice. It's not that it doesn't work, it does, I can play it. There's just no sound whatsoever. Then I figured, let's try plugging this bastard into the TV directly and see if that works. And I did. And all I got was a blinking picture and some sound. And yes, I tried using the shitty little USB cable it came with and plugged it to the TV. Then I tried said phone charger. Same deal. The funny thing is I've seen other videos of this gimmick in action, and in those videos, the gimmick played sound just fine. So, I don't know, maybe it's an issue with my setup or I just don't know how to set these dongle things up properly. It's my first one after all, I've never actually used one of these. Or maybe it's an issue with this particular unit and I just shouldn't bother with these sorts of gimmicks anymore. I don't know. In any event, on one setup I have picture but no sound, so I can't properly gauge the sound emulation on these things, but in any event, what we have in this particular device are 8 classic Namco games, such as Pac-Man, Galaga, Galaxian, Xevious, Dig Dug, Mappy, Sky Kid, and Tower of Wally, why couldn't you have given me Pac-Mania? It would have been a much better choice, but whatever. Anyways, whatever. Okay, so let's get the big meat and potatoes out of the way. What we have here are the NES versions of these 8 Namco games, despite the screenshots on the packaging and the menus being from the arcade originals, which have been a real point of contention and controversy for this particular iteration of the ATGames Blast plug-and-play device. It's a real scummy move on the part of ATGames to go in this direction, and I'm perfectly fine staying away from that particular dead horse. The issue with the NES versions is that they're generally adequate ports, but still somewhat lesser versions of the arcade games they're based on. You have some minor emulator options such as save states and a rewind feature, which I've tried once or twice and failed to see the point. Unless you want to make some funky remix videos or something like that. Some folks would argue it's a nice convenient way of going back to an earlier point if you screwed up at some point in a game, but then again that's what save states are for, and I much prefer those if they're done right. Whereas a rewind feature seems a bit superfluous and kind of pointless. But different strokes for different folks, I suppose. The picture quality is adequately below average. I have no idea what that means, but let's go with it regardless. It looks to be at the proper resolution and not stretched to fill the screen or anything like that. However, the picture in general looks a bit off, almost as though the emulator is running some sort of filter to try and smooth out the pixels, and what you end up getting is a bunch of blobs on screen. Just for comparison's sake, I played a sample game of Pac-Man on the NES Classic Edition, which pretty much justifies the only reason you'd want Pac-Man on the NES Classic Edition,
is so that you have a basis for comparison whenever some other plug-and-play device has Pac-Man for the NES on it. And then I quit playing Pac-Man on the NES Classic Edition, and I played some of the other games on the console because why not? The frame rate also has a tendency to be a bit on the choppy side of things, something of a similar issue that was found on ATGames' previous plug-and-play effort, the Sega Genesis Flashback. Beyond that, there are no scanline options if you care for that sort of thing, there are no resolution settings if you care for that sort of thing, and no way to play the arcade originals that this thing originally advertised if you care for that sort of thing. I don't know why you wouldn't care on that last point, but in any event, I think we're done here. Now back to the live shot.
So after 500 takes, we're finally going to end this video. And so this was the ATGames produced Bandai Namco Flashback Blast HDMI dongle device. My first dongle device and my last HDMI dongle device, because these are a pain in... This alone was a pain in the ass to try and get to work properly. If I try to plug this into my capture setup, I get a picture but no sound. And if I plug this directly to my TV through the actual HDMI slot on my TV and powered by the TV's USB slot, I get sound but no picture. Or rather, I get a picture blank out every few seconds. Consistently. It's no random pattern. It's consistently, a couple seconds blank, couple seconds picture. You've seen it. You've seen the footage. And it's and barring all the technical issues, just the fact, the emulation's kind of, it's alright. I'm sure the more picky folks might have some issues with the screen tearing, and, I think there's some missing frames here and there. And the sound emulation I didn't get a good listen to, but it's close, but no cigar, I guess. It's not the worst thing ever. If they had Super Mario Brothers on here, I'd get a better grasp of how the sound emulation is like, but I don't think it's anything too terrible. But just setting all that aside, just the fact that they would use the arcade screenshots on their packaging and on their menus, and they give you this false assumption that you're going to be playing the arcade originals emulated on this device, and I don't know, given their track record with, I'd imagine the ATGames emulations of these arcade games wouldn't have been great. But instead of the arcade games, you're getting the NES ROMs, which the NES versions aren't bad in most cases, but they're not the arcade originals. And when you have those screenshots, you expect those games to be played, not inferior ports. And I think it's too bad that ATGames, that they didn't have the professionalism to resolve the issue like professionals, I guess, and they gotta be band happy on Twitter or whatever the case may be. So I don't know. So you folks who want to go on other plug and play pages, you want to say, I'm gonna buy these so I could hack the shit out of this thing, go ahead and hack the shit out of this thing, motherfuckers. I'd actually like to see somebody actually try that, actually. I'm gonna hack the Namco Bandai Blast thing, and I'm gonna replace all the NES ROMs with Action 52. Probably the best thing for it, actually. Yeah. The sad thing is, unfortunately, the controller itself, it's on the desk, I can't be bothered to pick it up, but the controller itself, it works. That's probably the only real positive I could really say. It works. It's not the greatest thing ever. It doesn't feel all that great, but it works. So, points for that, but other than that, it's like, something I noticed here? You notice there's no sad onion on this package. Oh, age 15 plus. You have to be 15 years or older to play this thing. So that's how we're ending Sunday Gimmick Table, everybody. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and to all a good night. Later.